Yeah, maybe squeeze it together. Run them busy. So you can get it everything.
Oh, I mean, the problem is they just.
Yeah, fire.
That building well. When Little Red Reptile was doing, when the last time Little Red was in there with their exhibit, I tore it all down for them. After they had parts, everything down, all hit up when the truck got Ottawa. I was in there, I don't know what time it was all done, cleaned everything up. I went through that back stairway. Oh yeah, you locked that. Oh yeah, I got locked in there already. I have my own museum. It was quite fun.
Everything come alive.
A lot of the exhibits are live all night, right? So it's like, yeah, it was a little freaky. I didn't set the alarm on. I was good. But I had me do the cover off my belt and undo the alarm. Siri would have found you at some point. Oh, she was gonna looking for me at that point, but I actually what I ended up doing is I was in there for quite a while, and I couldn't find the phone number to call. But I took the sensor off the door, put them together. Went out the back door, but it set the alarm off, so you didn't have to pay a $40 bill to the fire department all the way around to the security desk. She's like, "Oh, I wonder where you got to." Yeah. Then I went to put the sensor back on. It was that clunk at the door. We're gonna do a couple of. I'll break the fourth there.
Let the clients off.
That might have been 18. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Started here, because I heard that would have been that. I had the slot.
Do you want Paul? Didn't realize that was up.
Yeah, I'll go. Hello there, Cara. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. You can hear me. That's awesome. I'm Patrick. I'm the AV
I
guy,
can.
and I have everybody else in the room here. I'll show you. You can see our the panelists.
Awesome.
So good. Well, we'll put you up on the screen here with everybody else. See if that's working. Let's see here. That's not right.
Majority good folks.
Marvelous. There you go. We got you on the screen.
Awesome.
Or doing the desks or offices for all our easy stuff at home. Yeah, that's what, I mean, and that was, so this only affects EC and all that really not understand, so, and then you're just like,
Yeah, see,
you don't know
I,
what
it's
to
funny because I don't have that either.
Yeah. Yeah,
So there is no-
exactly.
I have one person. Like,
Yeah.
there's no, like, there's no, but I know that some. Especially because we've been.
That's what I mean, we have,
years,
yeah,
years.
people in our team who outside of HR out like really.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas, and it's like, well, our department has offices, but I'm a chief division offices based in Halifax, and so the option for them to just, it can't be just assumed that they can go to those regional offices. I find it interesting. That's because it's like, you know, when they signed on to the job prescribed that, you know,
That's
we
it.
have to be able to use your function, just don't have.
I think that that's gonna be interesting.
Just hope that they a bit more gradually than. Because I think just the signal that for the staff. If you use staff officer, but like my staff are like, this is not for. Yeah, that's one of my comments is like, what was, how did the pandemic impact the work? It's like, well, greenhouse gas emissions went down in the transportation sector. That's. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Oh, it was probably put in the fridge so no one took it.
It's like, did I? Should I not? Yeah, I said. 60. Yeah. People just need.
Yeah, that's 14 people.
I thought it took 12 for 2 beats.
Right? Never know if I'm leaving or joining.
So I better. Yesterday, I almost. Sitting down, we're just books there. We were.
You can't see them. They can see. I get it. I usually take some. I usually be like, hey, don't forget your. And like, get it. There's so much going on and everything. Like, that's the one thing that always slips out of my mind. Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's why I was sitting here like sweating yesterday. I was wondering why.
It's really good. It's warm yesterday. It is. It's warm.
Yeah.
You was in somebody's rooms. Hands over the sector.
I love to live in the river, but not everybody does.
Sensor, I think it's hotter than it is. Stuff that you-
I've wanted to swim my
Same kind of thing, those little lock down, same sensors, those. It's a thermostat. And the teacher, it's like, watch this. It's daughter crying. Blows it.
But it's funny because I was remember when I
All of a sudden, it shuts off. I'm like.
I remember being in like the live audience of the thinking how weird that was at the time. Now that's like, it's just strange.
I know. Yeah, well, this should. I used to do it. This to be.
Feel free to just be with the microphone. Feel free to like on.
They're very
And water around it. It's nice being water.
Honestly,
Yeah.
one of the things that was.
Don't really stand in one spot ever. I'm like always kind of like walking around. Yeah.
You don't go to see a lot. You need to find these labels. We did end up playing.
This is one of our management professors in our
Yes.
program. This is Neil.
Nice to meet you. I have my class coming, joining us, hopefully the full class. Thank you so much for coming.
Okay, we're gonna give another couple of minutes and then. Eight. I may sneak them in. There are a lot of things after.
That's it.
A lot of them will be online. That's downside. It's not a downside, but like just for faces visual.
Oh. I run hot.
No, I knew exactly when I walked in. Like, came back and I'm like, overload.
Oh.
They sealed that in after.
Oh, that did.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, nice, okay. Love that.
Oh.
Have you ever been? That's the fear of leaving, right? Yes. No. This place is very first.
When you're
I've been here and there. Yes.
not like the days when we used
Yeah, I was gonna say. You live so close to that. Being said.
Right.
You need to like figure it out. Mine's mine, but yes. Yeah. Especially not eating. Become the channel.
It's all yours.
Can everyone hear me okay? Awesome. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Management and Strategic HR Management panel. My name is Casey Oki, and I am the Special Projects Coordinator for the Business and Tourism Department, and I will also be your moderator for today. With us today, we have Sarah, Jeff, Catherine, and Christine with us in person, and online we have Cara joining us. So we're just going to kick off with our first question. If you guys want to tell us your organization and what products and services that you guys offer. Sarah, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So my name is Sarah Mullins, and I own a company called uptreeHR. We're an HR consulting firm based here in Halifax, and we deal primarily with small businesses, providing fractional HR services in every functional area of HR, from recruitment, performance management, coaching, organizational development,
चेक कर
termination.
ले यार मैंने टी शर्ट नहीं पहनी इशू
ब्लैक पग नहीं जाएगी एक मिनट
हाँ
ब्लैक पग नहीं जाएगी
ब्लू जींस के साथ जाएगी
I think that was done. I'm good.
My name is Christine Lunn. I am an HR business partner for Highliner Foods. I primarily support supply chain. If you're not familiar with Highliner, we are a value-added seafood manufacturing company. We've been in operation for 125 years this year, which is an incredible feat. Our little known things about Highliner Foods is we do both retail. So you'll see our Highliner brands in grocery stores, but we also do food service. So oftentimes you'll be at a restaurant eating a seafood product, and it was actually manufactured at Highliner Foods here in Nova Scotia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Chase. I use she, her pronouns. I also have ADHD, so I'm going to be referring to my cue cards to make sure I stay on topic and don't ramble too much. I work with the Nova Scotia Department of Environment and Climate Change, specifically within the Climate Change Division. So that's provincial government. And so what our department is responsible for is delivering effective and efficient regulatory management for the protection of our environment. But specific to what my division offers, we provide services that include funding and investment opportunities within our communities, but also within industry, strategic policy advice through things like environmental assessments and legislative and regulatory changes, as well as research and knowledge mobilization to ensure that we are effectively communicating local climate data for our communities to use in the implementation of their climate change efforts. So that's a little bit about what I do.
My name is Jeff Gray. I am the manager of the Museum of Natural History on Summer Street, part of the Nova Scotia Museum of 28 museums that are spread across the province. We are a provincial organization as well. And I guess for product wise, we are an educational facility. We are also the home of the Nova Scotia Museum's collection, which does range up to 1 million pieces in the collection, the majority of which are stored in our building. And we're probably best known as the home of Gus the Gopher Tortoise.
Awesome,
Hey,
Cara.
everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. So I am the area director for Planet Fitness. So I oversee Atlantic Canada. We are home of the judgment-free zone. Our members enjoy working out in a comfortable, non-intimidating, and clean environment at an affordable cost. Our membership plans include access to Planet Fitnesses worldwide. We have over 2,500 locations across North America. A fully staffed club at all operating hours, and free fitness training for both memberships. In addition, we have our Planet Fitness app that offers different workout plans and tutorials for at the gym or at home as well.
Awesome. Well, it seems like we have a very diverse set of panelists today. So moving on to our next question. What is your current position in the organization, and how and why did you choose your current field of work? Jeff, do you want to start us off?
So as I said, I'm the manager of the Museum of Natural History. I've been with the museum since 2009. Previous to that, I was at the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia for 8.5 years. And prior to that, I worked at the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic on the waterfront. So I have almost 25 years of museum experience. I don't know. I think I feel sort of accidentally get into my work. I knew that I always liked working in museums. I was here at the Mount, and just after I graduated, I applied and got a job, just a summer job. And I am the poster child for the summer job that just kept going. I was that, and then I was a parental leave at the art gallery, and she never came back. And then another person left and took their job, and they never came back. And so I sort of have it's all smoke and mirrors. I literally have sort of scammed my way through just staying around. But I also think that there's a little bit of a lesson in that. I've always loved museums. I think that having a job and a career in a field that you love is extremely important. But I also think there's something to be said for a willingness to keep doing and trying new things and picking up tasks that aren't getting done by other people. There is a lot to be said for people who can stay like that. I would also say there is a long history of people that I know through the museum who have followed the same path. They started at the front desk, and then somebody disappeared, and then you get in. And especially, and you can attest to this too, the government is like a club. You need to get into the club to stay in the club. And so entry-level positions, they might seem like entry level positions when you look at them, but they are a gateway into a wider range of positions, not just, I'm at the museum and that's a thing through the museum, but really across government. So I think there is something to be said for that. But I don't feel like I can answer that question and say that I actively was excited to do. I wanted to work in museums and feel very lucky that I've had the career that I've had.
So I am the acting manager of climate change mitigation, and I'm also the Sustainable Communities Challenge Fund coordinator. Just for context, climate change mitigation, if you're not familiar with what that means, it's how we are trying to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions in alignment with our greenhouse gas reduction targets. So very similar to Jeff, and I promise I was not paid to plug this, but I also was a Mount student. I participated in the co-op program, and it was in my second work term where I had the opportunity to work with at the time it was the Department of Energy. So I got my foot in the door that way, and I, networked a lot within the department. There were times where maybe there wasn't a whole lot of work within the team that I was originally hired within. And because I'm not the type of person who likes to twiddle my thumbs, I would walk around the different teams and say, hey, do you guys need any help with anything? Is there any work that I can, help out on? And from there, I was able to meet a different manager, and her and I had created a really great connection there. And then after my work term ended, went back to, continued my studies. And it was in the spring of 2017 when I was about to graduate the Mount where I happened to run into that same manager again. And she had said, I'm actually looking to hire somebody kind of like an intern type role. Are you interested in applying? Like I was actually thinking of you. And so that's how I kind of got my foot back in the door there. And so I think a lot of my experience is quite similar in that way, where I was hired on in kind of an internship role, and then that got extended, and then it got into a different type of role. And I think that was successful for me because I also vocalized that I was interested in staying. So it's not that this just kept falling in my lap. I kept actively telling my team, like, I would really love to start working here. Like, I really like the work that we're doing, and I have a lot of great ideas, and I really want to be a part of this solution of services that we're offering. And so I was really fortunate that way. In terms, that's how I would say how I got into the field. But as you're maybe wondering, I have, 2 degrees in business, and nothing of that is specific to environment or climate change. And so a lot of that passion came from just my own personal interests of things that I value. So in protecting our environment, we're trying to make headway on climate change, especially in this province. I'm from this province, so that matters to me, is being able to make this province and my community a safe space to live, work, and play. And so that's kind of why I kind of stuck with this work, and I challenged myself. I'll admit, like, there was a huge learning curve. I was working with a lot of engineers and a lot of people who had that background expertise, but they were able to take me under their wing, and I was able to learn a lot on the job. And the skills that I gained from my studies at the Mount in the business administration program was what I needed to get the job, and what I needed to know about the context of the role, I was able to learn on the job. So I put myself out there. I often kind of echoed that I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to try something new. And so that's how I've been able to, over 8 years, move from an entry level role to now a manager role.
So again, I'm an HR business partner, primarily supporting supply chain within Highliner Foods. So a lot of my role is dedicated to supporting how people work within supply chain and making sure that we are most effectively using our people. I wouldn't say that I started my career with the intentions of getting into HR. It's not. I do have a BBA, but the HR courses weren't something that I necessarily gravitated towards. When I initially got into the workforce, I was working in operations, so primarily in a service industry. So if you're familiar with Park and Fly, there's Park and Fly here in Halifax. It's a national brand. I supported Toronto Park and Fly, where there's a valet service, and they would have roughly 1,000 cars coming in and out a day. And so we had a very large workforce, and we didn't have HR support. So I naturally kind of took over a lot of those areas of the business in terms of recruiting, performance management, working with the union. And I sort of gradually fell into that stream of work. I then moved on to working at WestJet, where I was a performance and support manager supporting cabin crew. So by cabin crew, I mean flight attendants. And with WestJet, who happens to have 14,000 employees, the cabin crew is quite large. And within that role, I learned a ton about managing a remote workforce. That role, while there was components of HR to it, it wasn't 100% HR, but primarily it was working with employees with regards to their how they were overall performing and looking for opportunities to improve, addressing behavioral issues, addressing training and development, and working with the team in that regards. I started at WestJet in 2019. In 2020, we all know what happened. So early on in 2020, when airlines were getting rumblings of COVID coming about, and we were one of the first areas that was starting to have to take action with regards to COVID. By early March, we were getting notices that there was going to be layoffs. I very fortunately found another opportunity. I was tapped on the shoulder to work at Tim Hortons in the supply chain area within HR. So combining two of my passions for operations and people. And I jumped on that opportunity. So very fortunately, I didn't have to go through a layoff process. At Tim's, I learned a ton. Absolutely. It's an incredible company to work for. They have a massive distribution center in Guelph, Ontario. That's primarily what I supported. I did support manufacturing in a smaller aspect. That distribution center had 450 employees, and we had 1.5 HR people supporting the facility. So really very much feet to the flames. You're on the go. It was a 24/7 operation, and simply trying to stay on top of the workforce management of that was absolutely a challenge. From there, I decided, I'd love to be in Nova Scotia. And I happened upon an opportunity with Highliner Foods that again brought together my love for being very close to operations, which gives you sort of that rush of having the energy of things constantly moving and changing, and again working with people and helping them develop their own careers. And so that's where I am now. I absolutely love it. It's an incredible place to work, and yeah, thank you.
So I am the founder and CEO of uptreeHR. So I've spent pretty much my entire career in human resource management. Starting in high school, I worked as a cashier in a grocery store at a superstore. And this is in New Brunswick. And by 18, I was the supervisor of the cashiers in the front end. So it was a lot really early in my career. It was interesting though, because when I went into university, I really initially wanted nothing to do with business. I enrolled in a science program because I was an athlete in high school and that's what my friends were doing. And I realized early on, but it was between my physics and my calculus exams of the first year that I went up and filled out the paperwork to go into business. I actually caught the chemistry lab on fire, but that's a story for another day. But anyways, I moved into business, really didn't know what I wanted to do, realized pretty soon that I did not want to work in accounting, thought maybe marketing, and then I started taking my HR courses. And it was really interesting for me because I was a supervisor and at that point had been at the superstore for probably 4 years. Every course I took, they let me take over that accountability at the store. So I took my recruiting course and I started doing the recruiting for the store. I took a course in training. I developed a training program for the store. And so by the time I graduated university, not only had I worked for the same employer for 7 years, I had HR experience. I had gone through a co-op program, so I'd worked for multiple other employers. And so I was really well positioned to move into the workforce. One of my co-op work terms was at a fish packing plant in southern New Brunswick. And we were hiring sardine packers over the phone. And seemed like a really simple job. It was a lot of fun actually, but it was one summer in my university career. When I graduated university, I started applying for HR jobs. The job market was in the toilet. Couldn't find anything, literally sending out hundreds and hundreds of resumes, not hearing anything. And then finally, I had a little bit of a nibble on a job that I didn't really want, and they called one of my references, and it was my manager from the fish packing plant. Well, she was now working at a call center as the HR manager. So she offered me a job. She said, I hear you're looking for work. Do you want to come be our recruitment manager? So straight out of university into a recruitment management role. Yes, absolutely. Right. So I started off with a team of 3 people and high volume recruiting. We're hiring 50 people a week. It was 800, and this was in the peak of the call center world in the mid 2000s. We had about 800 and some odd employees, and the turnover rate when I went there was 184% per year. I got it down below 100%, which was a win for me before I left a couple of years later. Moved to Halifax, worked for Eastlink as an HR consultant for several years, then moved on to Blue Wave Energy. Then they were acquired by a company called Parkland Fuel Corporation, which is an oil and gas organization out of Alberta. We were heavy into mergers and acquisitions, some really, really fun work. Traveled the country, onboarding and integrating employees. Had just had a lot of fun. And then the biological clock started ticking, and I looked at my husband and I said, I think it's time. And we started our family, and just the travel just wasn't right anymore. It didn't feel right. I was out of the province at least a week a month. So after my second was born, I walked away from that job after almost a decade, and said, okay, I'm going to move on. Didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work with smaller businesses, but when I interviewed for those jobs, they all said, Sarah, you're overqualified. And I said, money's not an issue. And they said, no, you're overqualified. You should consult. And I was the type of person that said, no, I want the steady paycheck. I don't want to have any risk. I'm not this person. And then finally, after talking to several people that I knew in the industry, they said, just go for it, Sarah. Do it for a year. If you don't like it, there'll always be another job. And so I did it. I thought I'd give it a year. And my kids were young. My kids were 3 and 1 when I started this business. It was tough. It was really tough. And after 1 year, I didn't think I was going to make it. And then I thought, I'll just hold on until they start school. And then I can just go back to kind of traditional employment. By the time my 1-year-old was then 5 and starting school, we were doing great. I'd hired consultants working for me. We were kind of killing it. And even though the idea crossed my mind, COVID hit, and we were in the perfect position because we were already all remote. We already had the technology. We were supporting our clients remotely. Our business increased because everyone was like, Sarah, how do I lay everybody off and then bring them back? And vaccination policies, can we make them get vaccinated? The phone was ringing off the hook. And so it really was a great time. And now things have settled a bit and we are still growing. We're hiring our 4th consultant. We're in the process of hiring our fourth consultant right now. And it's just been a really wild ride and I'm loving every bit of it.
Awesome. Cara?
Yeah, so similar to everybody, I didn't go into university thinking that I would be a manager. I took business courses because I figured it would be a good opportunity that if I could really get a job in whatever I was passionate about. And then I started working at Susie Shear at the same time I was going through university. So I was there for about 9 years. And in that time, I started as a sales associate. Management positions would open up. So I would, step in, be the acting manager through the summer while classes were out. They would hire somebody. And over that time, while I was learning my courses, I was able to apply a lot of what I was learning to the role and see how I would want to do things differently. So anytime there was an opportunity, I said yes. And then I graduated and I was able to take on a full-time manager position. Fell in love with Susie, fell in love with the culture there, fell in love with the team that we had built. So, it felt like it was going to be something permanent for me. And I continued to say yes. And then COVID happened and no one from head office could travel to Atlanta, Canada. So that was really my time to jump in on new opportunities, to train managers, travel to do store openings, multi-unit management for a while. And then in the September of 2021, I was promoted to district manager. So I did that for 2 years in Atlanta, Canada. So I oversaw 10 stores. And then in February of 2024, I was reached out to a recruiter for Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness, I was already a member there and loved the concept of a judgment-free environment. Was super passionate about the business they were building, super passionate about the growth in the East. We started out in 2020 in our first location in the East Coast and have now grown to 5. And we are actually opening a 6th location in Newfoundland. That's why I'm virtually. We're doing the equipment drop today. So back and forth between doing that. But I think my biggest passion that I ended up doing management is I was so passionate about seeing someone do a job well done, seeing someone who started with no experience, no, background in it, and really being able to train and develop them into the best employee that they could be. And it was so great to see somebody who had started as a sales associate for me end up being one of my managers when I moved into that area director position. And now with Planet Fitness, I've really been able to grow and stretch that. I think that, for me, building a positive work culture and being the one to really drive that was so important. We all have the horror stories of, those minimum wage jobs you do in high school, and they're just not a lot of fun. And I really wanted to be the person that could make a difference in that experience for everybody else. And through the culture with Planet Fitness, that's definitely been something we've been able to do. And, that's where we are now, judgment-free and positive work environment and growing every day.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're going to move on to our next question. So the term management can cover a very broad range of duties and activities. Um, can you name about like 2 or 3 just specific activities that you do in your current position? Cara, we'll start with you this time.
Sure. So in my current role, a big part of my time is overseeing daily operations in each club. So ensuring that our standards of operations are being followed, making sure that our mission statement is in alignment with what they're seeing in clubs. So we aim to be the friendliest gym out there and the cleanest gym out there. So, doing club visits, connecting with managers. The second piece of my job is in recruiting and development. So right now we're doing a ton of hiring and training, whether it's for managers transferring out or the new club we're opening. So that's a big part of my role. I'm really building that. Currently, we're working on revamping our training guide. So I'm a part of driving that. Sorry, not training guide, interviewing guide. So I'm a big part of that experience. And really just overall, my job is to find new ways to drive the business, whether it's easier systems for our team, new incentives to drive our focuses, and just really, making sure that we're holding our teams accountable in the way that we need to, and that the managers are holding their teams accountable.
Awesome. Thank you. Jeff, do you want to start us off with the people in the room?
I find that I think for me, one of the things that I love about working in the museum is that things always change. We have different shows, different exhibits, which bring different audiences and different size audiences. So part of my job is finding those exhibits, but on a day-to-day basis, I can be everyone from, the team cheerleader to the team counselor to helping find new people to work at the museum to dealing with, if there are issues with visitors or complaints and sort of everything in between. Then also if the AC goes down in the building or something happens in the building, I'm also that guy too. So I get a lot of variety through the run of the day, which can be great. But I also, there's a running joke on Fridays. So what will be the big issue today? And then with us, we are a 7-day-a-week operation. And because we have live animals in the building and have a collection, we are a 365-day all the time, 24 hours operation in some capacity. So you never know what you're going to get, but sort of the mystery of what's going to happen is probably one of my favorite parts of the job.
So I think for my role, a lot of the manager type activities come back to performance management, professional development opportunities, hiring, and a lot of coaching staff. So when staff come to me with problems or, there's maybe a challenge that they're trying to figure out how to overcome, rather than always maybe offering what I think the solution is it's trying to probe them and work with them to help them figure out what the solution could be. So working with staff and a lot of different files and kind of maybe not necessarily always having the full picture, but just being that soundboard for them. Anything to do with hiring, so that can be writing the job description. Well, our provincial government does have the Public Service Commission, which is essentially all of our HR staff. There is, from the manager's perspective, a lot of some of that work that you have to take on as well, because you're the one who knows what your team needs. And so they can provide some resources and advice and how to maybe frame it in the job posting, but it does often come back to the manager's responsibility to draft what that job posting would look like. And we would lead through the hiring process as well. Anything to do with onboarding or offboarding as well. So getting staff, trained up and making sure that they've completed all of their required training programs. And as well as when, staff eventually leave to go to different opportunities, making sure that they feel supported and they have the tools that they need to navigate, what that transition will look like, and whether that's making sure you understand what your pension, how to manage that once you leave. So you're often kind of this person who maybe you don't necessarily have all the information in the top of your head, but you're the go-getter. So you're the person who I don't maybe know the answer to that, but I'm going to go find that for you. And so a lot of advocating for your staff and what they need and finding the tools and resources that are going to help them do their job the most effectively. I often think back to when I've taken HR courses here at the Mount, and you do those case studies and you're presented this like problem and you're kind of tasked with, it's like, well, what would you do? That's like, that's often honestly what my job looks like, is like somebody is struggling to work with somebody else in the team, and you know, it's a really important file, we got to get it done, but there's a quality assurance piece and there's time pressures and there's all of these factors, and some things are red herrings and some things are kind of, you know, the really the root of the issue. And so I often think back to those HR classes. I'm like, okay, well, what would Jeff Young, my professor at the time, you know, he often say, so what? And that probing of like, have you really gotten down to the root issue there? So it's a lot of, honestly, it's a lot of thinking and brainstorming and finding my mentor and asking them advice. And but yeah, I'm gonna stop there. But yeah, that's the HR and the manager side of my role.
So primarily, my day to day, you know, being highly involved with operations, I wear many hats throughout the day. I have a direct team that I support, and primarily with that direct team, I am working on their training and development, providing coaching and guidance on how to handle particular situations. And those are things I also do with the broader team because I work in HR. Um, in addition to that, workforce planning is a key area that I dedicate a considerable amount of time. Training and development, as I mentioned, as well as performance management within my team, as well as the broader team, and helping other managers have those conversations with their direct leaders. So similar to what my counterparts here mentioned, that how they're spending their time having those coaching conversations, talking about performance and development, and resolving conflict within their teammates. Oftentimes, my job is to coach those managers on how to go about those things in the most professional and HR spirited way to ensure that we have compliance amongst the team, that we're treating people fairly, that we are, you know, upholding our own policies and procedures as well.
This question's a little bit tricky for me to answer because I wear two very different hats in my organization. So on the fractional HR side, I'm a fractional director of human resources for 3 different organizations right now. So within those organizations, I am developing HR strategy and dealing with employee relations issues, recruiting, training, management coaching. It's a lot of meetings, like you said, kind of sitting down with managers and employees to figure out what's going on. Organizational development, a lot of more terminations than I really like to do, but we get involved with that often. So I do have that side. So I do, you know, I'm going in today, even I was at a client's office before I came here, and I'm at their office all day, every Tuesday. And I am their HR person, and they can contact me at any time, but those are my office hours. And I have someone else that I go to their office on Thursdays. And the rest is pretty much remote. So I have that hat where I'm actually delivering HR support in a workplace, but I also own my own business. So I have employees that I need to manage and lead, more lead than manage because they're incredible people. They don't need a whole lot of support from me, but I'm also creating a marketing strategy. And I have an accountant, but I have to do a bit of bookkeeping and make sure that I invoice correctly and matching things up and reconciling things. And those are things that I'd never done before I started my own business. I have to worry about insurance and business registration and all these different things that I've learned over the years. That are completely unrelated to my field of study or my career thus far. But it's been exciting to have that. You know, I really enjoy, as much as I did not like accounting in high school or in university, I enjoy it now. I like seeing how the numbers work. I like how my balance sheet balances. I love, my favorite time of the month is at the end of the month when I get to review my P&L because it's usually a good month. So it's I enjoy those things more because it's not, for me, that's not part of my core job, and I just get to do it every so often. I'm working right now with a website designer. We're revamping our website, and we're going to be launching it in the next couple of weeks. Again, that's not something as an HR professional within an organization I would usually be involved in, and I'm able to kind of, I guess, broaden my business acumen and get involved in different things. So very different roles.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that that gave us a very good overview on all of the different tasks that you have to do as an HR manager and in just management. So we also have many students in our business and tourism program who are looking to go into management roles. What factors do you consider before promoting an employee into management? Sarah, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. This particular topic is of interest to me for multiple reasons, but we recently did a career pathing session over at SMU actually in the spring, and it was all about how to career path folks into management roles, or for those who don't want to move into management roles, what's the career path for them? Because let's be honest, not everybody should be a manager. Not everyone wants to be a manager. um, there are people out there that see management as their only career progression. I've seen employees who didn't even apply for a job, but because they were technically sound in the job, the owner of the company or the leader of the organization offered them a management position, and they failed. Every time they failed when they have not shown any interest or development in a role like that, and they're thrown into that type of role. So for me, it's not focusing on the technical expertise, but focusing on how they will lead people. I have a general rule of thumb that to be a leader, to move into a management role, you need to have a genuine interest, a genuine desire for the success of other people. If you don't have that, if you're only in it to advance your career, if you don't truly care about those in your team and their success, don't move into a management role.
I very much agree with what Sarah had to say. I think one of the key qualities that I look for is ability to gain cooperation. And can you, first of all, do that with your peers? And can you get people on board with your ideas and influence them versus direct them? And I think you oftentimes will have much more success with your team and cohesion within your team if you have that innate ability to get others to do what you want them to do. Second to that, again, is care. Like, do they actually exhibit care about other people and how other people perform? Are there any examples that they can provide of something that they've done to support somebody else's development? In addition to that, it's strategic big picture thinking. So if you're very task oriented and you're typically only looking at the things that are in front of you day to day, you're not demonstrating how you're thinking about how those things are going to impact down the line. So do you have the ability to understand the decisions that you're making and what impact they're going to have further down the line within your own team, within other departments? And are you thinking more longer term versus shorter term? And these are just some of the things that I consider when looking at someone's ability to move into a management role.
I would agree with a lot of that. So I'll try not to be overly repetitive. What I had thought of ahead of time was, the number one piece is, have they actually expressed interest in management? That's a really important thing. And knowing, is that something that they've been working towards in their career path? Is that something that they're actively, trying to develop themselves to be at one point? Have they demonstrated leadership abilities? In provincial government, we do have training opportunities that can help grow the leadership skills. And so if we do see someone who is maybe potentially a candidate and it's something that they would be interested in learning more about, we can help them explore that through training opportunities. How are they dealing with conflict? Because that is something that you deal a lot with, whether it's within a file, whether when you're working with stakeholders, politicians, or just your own team, and trying to navigate that. And to your point of, are they able to you know, influence and get people on board, or at least manage the conversation in a way that's productive, because that's really, to me, very critical. Are they coachable? Are they willing to hear feedback? I think that's just personally from my own experience of entering into management, there's a steep learning curve, and you're not always going to get it right. And there may be areas that you feel that you're like, I'm really great. Like I'm going to crush this. And then you get into it and then you're like, oh, did that wrong. Oh, could have said that a little bit differently. Oh, I get that now. And so you have to be able to hear that feedback and receive it in a way that, and understand that the people who are providing you that feedback and trying to coach you are doing that for your own benefit, and they're trying to help you grow. And so if you're somebody who wants to go into management, but really cannot receive any feedback, you find yourself getting defensive, you find it to be a personal attack, I think that's something that you need to work on first, before you consider that, because you're going to receive feedback, whether it's from your senior leadership or whether it's from a staff person telling you that they wish you hadn't done something the specific way that you had done it. And, you know, hearing them out and meeting them with compassion is really important. And then I think the last piece that I like to consider is, depending on who it is, do we have the required supports in place that are going to allow them to be successful in the role? And so, you know, making sure that we're setting people up for success and not for failure is a big thing. That's definitely something that you can work with. So it's not to say that they're not going to get promoted just because we don't have the supports in place, but understanding what supports need to be in place for this person to be successful. So whether that means you maybe have to have a few more one-on-one coaching opportunities with this person to kind of, you know, build up that skill set before really sending them out in there, into the wild of being a manager.
I don't know that I have a lot to add to anything that's been said, but I'd like to key off your point. I think a lot of people end up in management because it's time served. They've been here a long time now. They're owed that as an end prize for the time that they've done it. And I think the people who get into management, you know, thinking that it's a prize are probably the people who end up being the worst managers. I think that it's people who are team leaders, who are, to me, it's people who are better, like more like sports coaches, or things that are like that make for better managers than people who just been around a long time. Because I think the other thing about being a manager, and I think for me, the thing that I struggled with too when I first became a manager, was the capacity to let go of what it was that you used to do. You might have been whatever it is, the best at that kind of a thing, but that's not going to be what you are anymore. You aren't that job anymore. You are now in charge of those people. You know, so to use a sports analogy, if you're the coach behind the bench, you aren't the person out there scoring goals, even if you used to score 1,000,000 goals. Wayne Gretzky was not necessarily a great hockey coach. He tried it. It doesn't make it that he was the best coach. Some of the best coaches are people who barely played. It's that they have a good capacity to be a leader and understand leadership. And I think that conversely, I think there's a lot of people who end up are great leaders who don't ever get a chance to be a manager because of timing. And I think that one thing you heard today, we all were really lucky. And so some people can, for every person who up here who was really lucky, there's probably some poor people out there who had bad luck and bad timing. And while I do think you can make your own luck, I think that, you know, there is something to be said for people who didn't get a kick of the can either.
Thank you. Cara?
Yeah, so really a lot of the points I was going to touch on were touched on. I think the two biggest things outside of that I'm looking for is, one, do they take initiative? Are they putting their hand up to try new things, do extra tasks, maybe support a new coworker that just joined the team? It's really indicative that if they're taking that interest now, they're willing to jump into the next level, and how will they perform when they're taking the next steps into that promotion. And the other thing, and it's probably the most important thing to me, is, are they passionate for the business? Are they passionate for the job? You know, a lot of skills can be coached or developed along the way, but if they don't have that initial love for the culture, love for their team, passion for the business and the mission behind the business, then that can create challenges when trying to create buy-in of their team and create buy-in for them to really drive what we're trying to do as a company. So I think passion is probably one of the most important things that I'm looking for.
Well, I think that those are awesome points that all of our students, including myself, will take into consideration. For our last question, what is one piece of practical and tangible advice that you would give to our business students who are just entering our workforce? Catherine, do you want to start us off this time?
Sure. A practical piece of advice, just one? Okay. I gotta decide. Okay, a practical piece of advice that I would offer students is don't screen yourself out. That's not your job. That's the hiring manager's job. So apply to the job that you want to. I heard a crazy statistic, and sorry for the gentleman, but this is going to be more so for the women in the room and online, but something crazy like men will apply to a job if they feel they meet 50% of it, but women will only apply if they feel they meet 80% of that. And that's you screening yourself out, and that's not your job. That's, again, the hiring manager's job. So put yourself out there, do your best in writing that resume and that cover letter. Make sure that it's targeted for that job. Speaking from experience, when I read a resume, that I've seen resumes and cover letters come in addressed to me, but then referencing a completely different job. So do, take care in doing that, but don't screen yourself out. Apply to the job that you want to, make those connections. Just take advantage of those opportunities.
Which one of you guys want to start us off next?
I'll take it. What you're doing right now is being a sponge in school. And when you enter the workforce, I would strongly encourage you to carry that same mentality. Be a sponge from all the people that you'll be working with. People who, in hourly roles, likely, as a university graduate, you're not going to be entering the workforce in an hourly position. But those individuals, if you're going into a manufacturing stream, for example, and you're going down a leadership path, those individuals have a lot of knowledge that can support you in your growth. Be humble and be willing and open to learning as you step into your career.
Sarah?
I think the most helpful piece of advice I could offer is learn to network. And I don't mean just learn to network, definitely learn to network so that you can pursue opportunities when you graduate. But learn to network throughout your career. So that you are top of mind when organizations are looking for new talent, but also that you get exposed to different things, and you, kind of that sponge thing you were just talking about, it widens the ocean, I guess. And so when you're thinking about networking, and I don't just mean going to socials and standing there with your friends and having a drink and an appetizer and walking at the door, go to events that are interactive. Go to events that you're able to add value or offer your services, and that could be volunteering. It could be networking can be any type of connection that you're making with other human beings. I volunteered a lot when I started my business. You look back in 2016 on my LinkedIn, and you would think that's all I did was volunteer, but it was to make those connections and build relationships. And kind of further to that, just do that throughout your career so that all those opportunities continue to kind of flow through. And I think that will best set you up for success as far as at least obtaining that first role and growing that career path. If I can just add to, I'm sorry, no, I'm supposed to only say one, but when you're doing that, don't be afraid to try different things. Like Jeff said earlier, if you take a role in a certain role and someone asks you, oh, do you want to move into operations or do you want to move into marketing? Try it. You never know, you might actually love it.
Jeff?
I think for me, my biggest thing, and I've tried to push this to a lot of people, and if I've ever been asked by people applying for jobs, what's your big thing? My big thing is you need to show up and show up. And the both ways that means. I think a lot of people are really good at doing one or the other, but not always both. And to define what I'm meaning by that, showing up means actually like showing up at work. Like there's a lot of people who, you know, absenteeism is a huge problem for a lot of people. I think that not that you should come to work when you're sick, but a lot of people will fall on a crutch of, you know, oh, I don't feel good, I'm not going to work. Like that becomes a real problem. Absenteeism, it can be a big problem. But then when you get to work, it's not enough to just be there and put in the time. You need to bring your best every time that you can do that. And I think that, so like I say, a lot of people, when they, you know, they don't come all the time, but they're there, they're great. Or people who are great, you know, they're there, but they're not doing everything. The best people are the people who can do both consistently in a way that makes them stand out. And you'd be surprised how much that is unique. Or for me, I find that to be unique. And the best people that you know are the people who can do both.
Awesome. Cara?
Yeah, I think the best piece of advice and that I can give you is say yes to every opportunity. Very similar into trying new things, whether it's not your area of expertise, whether it's not in the field that you're used to being in, say yes. You never know what opportunity is going to arise from that. You never know who you're going to meet through those processes. You never know where you're going to end up in your career. But when you say yes to those things, you're always the one that's top of mind when it comes to growing your career and moving ahead in the company. You know, I built a career from a sales associate to a district manager just by being the one to say yes. And that sometimes meant just going to a different location to, you know, sell clothes for an hour, or it meant going to a different province and training a new manager. And the only reason I was able to do the bigger activities was because I said yes to the smaller activities. And I think if you're, you know, a go-getter and you're driven and you want to be moving up in your company, then the easiest way to do that is say yes and take on new challenges. And if you can do that, I think your career is bright.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for all those insightful words. We now have time for some students in the room and online to ask some questions if they want. Students, if you're online, if you just want to put your questions in the chat box and I will ask them for you. And any students in the room, you can just raise your hand and we'll come around with a microphone.
What would be your advice to an entry-level employee who is introvert and he doesn't know how to interact well with their managers? And I feel like HR sometimes in certain companies, they don't play their role well in identifying these people and helping them interact better with their managers. And sometimes these employees can be let go because they were misunderstood.
I mean, anyone has an answer for that?
I can jump in here. I've worked with this a lot. We do a lot of kind of behavioral assessments and use that for team building and figuring out how people tick. So I've seen this and our advice in those situations, preferably be management led, but if your manager is not aware and you're able to have that conversation, which I know is kind of counterintuitive because you're the introvert, but if you can find a way to have that conversation or reach out to somebody in your HR department to have this conversation, there are very specific ways of approaching communicating with people who are introverted or just people who have different personalities. It also applies to folks on the neurodiversity scale and all those different things. So if you're able to figure out how best that person can lead you and support you, and it may be simple things like, can you send out the meeting agenda items before the meeting so I can prepare my thoughts? Or can I have time when we're one-on-one, and if you have a question, can I take that away and come back to you? Or can I not go to the networking event that the HR lady in the other room recommended? Like you just want to be able to clearly communicate if that's possible. And if you can't, then engage someone who can help you do that.
If I could jump in, I relate on one end, but I'm very extroverted, so not the introverted side, but I am neurodivergent. And so there are certain things that I know maybe for other people works great and makes sense. And then for me, myself, it's just like does not click. And so one thing that I've had to learn over the several years that I've been outside of school and, in the workforce is learning to advocate for myself the best way possible. And so my advice, to kind of that point is just doing some of that reflection as to, what is it specifically that you feel that you need additional support in, and finding ways to hopefully build that relationship that you have with a manager, or if not a manager, with a colleague. I am the extrovert, and I often have a colleague who is the introvert, and uh, her name was Kendra, and we were told, Kendra, you have to be more like Catherine, and Catherine, you have to be more like Kendra. And so there, and that came back to Catherine, you need to stop talking as much and you have to leave room for Kendra. And Kendra, we would love to see you get out of your shell a bit more like Catherine and share your ideas, because you have a lot of valuable insights to offer. And so, yeah, I think it comes back a little bit to that self-work and understanding, what needs do you have, having that ability to communicate that with your manager and say, like, listen, I'm struggling with this particular issue. Can we talk about what supports could look like? I don't maybe know what is on the table for off, like, does that look like a new software? Does that look like additional support or time needed? I know that I needed extra time with certain tasks because, I struggle with staying on track and staying focused. So know what you need. Don't be afraid to advocate for it. And if you're struggling to build that relationship directly with your manager, see if you have, that best friend at work, or if you have a mentor, get advice from them to figure out how to best navigate it. But, I want to encourage you and empower you to feel like you should be able to and you can advocate for your needs, because, I'm sure you have a lot of really great insights to offer, and you deserve the chance to stay on, regardless of whether you're introvert or extrovert like me.
Oh, I think that's some great advice. We have a question from online. So, if someone doesn't have any management experience, should they still apply for a management role?
Yes.
I like that fast answer.
There's no reason to know. I don't know
Yeah.
why, if a person is interested in that field, it's the point about why cancel yourself out of it. Just do it. The worst thing is going to happen. You're never going to hear from them.
I would just say, sorry. I would just say that, don't screen yourself out, apply to those roles, and just know that you may have to be a little newfangled with how you speak to your experience. And so maybe you don't have direct work experience with management, but maybe you've done volunteer experience where you've led students in different areas, or maybe you're part of the Business and Tourism Society and you've taken on responsibilities in that way. So yeah, don't screen yourself out. It just may mean that you have to market yourself and your skills a little bit differently.
That's exactly right. It's all about how you sell the skills that you do have. So be mindful in that as you're preparing your resumes and your cover letters, and looking very closely at that job description and highlighting all the ways that you can meet those expectations that are laid out in the job description. And you really should be tailoring every single resume, every single cover letter for every job that you're applying for, in order to make sure that you're going to get seen, that you're going to get pushed higher up on the list.
Tailoring also does not mean just changing who you're addressing it to. I just want to be really clear on that. It means also, when you're thinking of the examples of experience that you have, you're thinking of unique examples that make sense for that role. Sometimes that does mean the one cover letter you wrote, 3 months ago is still applicable, but the hiring manager can tell. Just so, and that can kind of sometimes be off-putting. And if you have a job that you've received 100 different applicants from, you're going to seek out the people who really made that effort and, selling themselves specifically for that role.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Do we have any more questions in the room?
Hey, my name's Kaya, and I was just wondering if you guys could share maybe why you decided to come out today and speak at Career Week, and maybe why you think it's a good idea for business students to come out and see these kind of events.
I can take that one. Part of the reason that I wanted to come out is when you're going through university, it can be so scary to try to figure out what direction you're going. You've got 4 years there, and there's so many different courses and electives. And, I think the majority of us go into university without necessarily having a final plan. So to give the opportunity back to maybe clarify some things, create those expectations, or maybe just give you a field that you maybe never have considered before, I think goes a long way. And to the other point of that, why it's important to come to these things, exactly what we talked about, building networks. You never know who you're going to meet in a meeting. You never know who you're going to meet in a social gathering. You never know what information you're going to learn. It's really important to get comfortable being uncomfortable, especially when you're moving out of university and going into the workforce. So I think the more you do these things now in a safe and welcoming environment, the easier it is to do that when you're heading into the career of your choice.
Awesome, thank you.
Just to add to that, when I was a student, I struggled with attending things like this myself. And so just, to show some growth over my career. So feeling uncomfortable in these situations and, getting to a point where I'm now comfortable to be in this spot. And I think that really demonstrates growth, and that you're going to have growth between now and, 10 years from now when you're partway through your career. And again, networking is so important. I absolutely encourage you to come up and meet all of us when we close this off. You never know how our paths may cross in the future.
I wholehearutedly agree. These are great opportunities for everyone to get out and meet people who they wouldn't normally meet. You all, connect with me on LinkedIn after this, or chat after this session, and we can get to know each other. I'm never adverse to, grabbing, now probably more so, a virtual coffee with folks to chat about things if they have questions or concerns, or if they need my help in any way. I just like giving back. When I started my business, I went through the SEED program. That's a Center for Entrepreneurship, Education, and Development. And we did a lot of this. And as a budding entrepreneur at the time, I found it very helpful just to gain insights and be able to, pick the brains of other folks who are a little bit ahead of me. So I encourage folks to do this and get out and talk to people. Again, it's all part of that networking piece that I talked about earlier.
I have an inability to say no to educational facilities. We are the museum, and being an educational facility is what we do. And university groups, fun fact, rarely come to visit the museum. Elementary schools come all the time. Junior high less so, high school rarely, and universities almost never. So any chance that we get, and all the staff, if we get asked, we almost always say yes. As a graduate of the Mount and as a graduate of Dow, I prioritize saying yes to those two organizations. And I would say every year I'm at a university at some point. It's important to be reminded that you're horrifyingly old. And so it's nice to be able to get out and see, I'm like, what's happening? Everybody's the same age and I keep getting older. But it's nice to be able to get back and see people and be able to talk about things. And if there's a kernel of sage advice that you got from this panel, probably from someone other than me, then I think that that's a great opportunity for us to be able to reach out as well.
So, funny enough, I actually messaged Peter Mumbercut and said that I would want to be on the panel, and I was almost insulted that I haven't been invited yet. I'm kidding. No, I used to work for, I went to MSVU. I did my undergrad here. I was in Casey's role, where I used to be the special projects coordinator, I think was the job title. So I'm familiar with the timing of these sessions, and honestly, I feel like I do love to give back. I love to do these types of somewhat volunteer opportunities. And I just recently reached a milestone in my career with getting into management over the last couple of months. And so I wanted to, get the opportunity to share my experience. I hope that it's maybe relatable or something that you can aspire to, because, I was in your shoes doing the BBA here. I've done the co-op program, I did the Learning Passport program, so I've attended all of these sessions, and I know it's probably annoying to hear, but it's like, it does work. It does work. I'm so thankful for having been offered those opportunities. I'm so freaking thankful that I took the opportunity and, didn't just let it pass me by, because truly, I can't say this enough. I wouldn't have the career I have if I didn't do the co-op program. I wouldn't have the career I had if I hadn't gotten the advice and the opportunities I'd gotten by attending these sessions. And I know that probably sounds cliche. No one paid me to say that, but I genuinely believe that. And so if I can hopefully pass on anything to you, is to attend these sessions and take these opportunities and not let them pass you by, and just hopefully you leave with that at the very least today, that these opportunities are really valuable. A lot of work goes into it, and for good reason, because the staff here, the faculty here want to see you guys succeed. And so, take advantage of it. You'll never get these types of opportunities just handed to you after you leave here. You have to seek those out. So take them while they come, and hopefully you have the good fortune that I've had, which has been able to network and make those connections, which has allowed me to have a really, so far, fulfilling career in government and in the space of climate change, which I'm really passionate about.
Well, I think that that is an awesome note to end on for today. So thank you so much to all of our panelists for joining us today, and let's give them a big round of applause. And I also want to thank all the students for joining us in person and online today. Thank you guys, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.